So we are Yamong, Charlene, Uwais, Ellie and Yujia, and our presentation is titled Beyond English Efficiency, the Role of Student Agency. As part of our research for this presentation, we interviewed two participants. So participant one has a language background in Chinese and is currently studying aviation in Melbourne, and they migrated to Australia when they were 14 and attended secondary school in Australia. So they've learned English through their friendship networks. Participant B has a language background in Bahasa Indonesian, and they're currently studying social work at the University of Melbourne. They started studying here 1 year ago, but they've been learning English for 10 years. Primarily learning English through YouTube, film, TV, news articles, and since arriving in Australia has been interacting with patients and has been active in a church group. Our main argument is their English medium learning is shaped not by proficiency alone, but how they have exercised agency to engage with complex academic content, negotiate meaning, and mobilize multilingual and digital resources within the constraints of their learning environment. So what do we mean by this? So is not shaped by proficiency alone. So we are talking about two students with similar English skills and they achieve very different outcomes. And success is not determined solely by English language proficiency, grammar, vocab, speech, reading, etc., but how learners exercise agency. So agency meaning taking initiative, making choices, actively managing one's own learning. For example, asking questions, seeking help, using learning strategies, or finding additional resources. To engage with complex content, so working with challenging ideas, concepts, academic material, not just understanding English words, but understanding the subject matter. And to negotiate meaning, so clarifying understanding through discussion and interaction. For example, asking a teacher or a classmate to explain something, checking interpretations, or discussing ideas. And mobilize multilingual and digital resources, so how they are drawing on all available resources, languages that they already know, so multilingual resources, translation tools, online dictionaries, videos, AI tools, learning platforms, and other technologies within the constraints of their learning environment. So learners work within the limitations such as time pressures, access to technology, school policies, teaching methods, availability of support, and social and cultural expectations. So more on student agency. So this slide just connects our overarching theme of student agency to the academic literature. So what you should take away from this slide is that agency means being active, not passive, and having a choice. And sometimes this can mean choosing not to act or remain silent. Agency can be supported or limited by teachers or institutions. And agency grows through meaningful interactions with opportunities that extend, and this can extend beyond the classroom. So the task is for teachers to create learning environments that support student agency, giving them meaningful opportunities to interact, explore, and make decisions, such as using their prior knowledge and prior tools. So the structure of this presentation will be that we're exploring student agency by examining how participant A and participant B engage with complex academic content, produce and negotiate meaning in real time, and mediate their learning through multilingual and digital resources. So we will cover what they both found helpful, so the benefits, what they found challenging, and the teaching implications from these investigations. I'm going to hand over to Uwais to speak to our first theme, which is engage with complex academic content.
Well, thank you, Ellie, for the time. The first theme we're going to discuss is engaging with complex academic content. And we divided actually into three themes, like what Ellie has explained. The first one is engaging with complex and academic context, and there are benefits and challenges within these themes. The first benefit is improved ability to understand discipline-specific academic materials. And the second one is developing understanding of professional and contextual academic language. The third one is ability to engage with complex topic through prior exposure. And for the challenges, the first one is difficulty understanding technical concepts despite knowing vocabulary And second one is need for precision when processing technical academic content. And the last one is difficulty with context-specific academic language. So what does this all benefits and challenges mean? We can unpack that with the following pages. Move to the next page. For the benefit, improved ability to understand discipline-specific academic materials. We quote from our interviewee saying that for normal academic reading, I think I'm quite comfortable now because I've been studying in English for years. And that became an evidence of our claim of benefits, the first one. And the second one is our interviewee said that if compare myself to people who don't have a foundation in social work, I probably understand the material better than they would. It is become an evidence for our second claims, which is developing understanding of professional and contextual academic language. And the third claim is ability to engage with complex topics through prior exposure. We also provide another evidence. Our interview said that if we've already read the Canvas material, then at least we have general idea of what people are going to talk about, even if they're using complex language or difficult pronunciation. I can still understand a little because I already know the topic. So these are the claims of benefit that we found within the interviews. We combine them and we divide them, decode them actually into three themes. And for the first theme, these are the benefits that we found from the interview. We're gonna discuss about the challenges in the next page. And then the challenges. Here is the first challenge within the theme that I discussed, the first theme. The first challenge is difficulty in understanding technical concepts despite knowing vocabulary. So basically, our interviewee said that sometimes they understand all the words individually, but when the words are put together into subject-specific context, they struggle to understand, saying that, but I still need to read the paragraph again to understand exactly what the procedure means. So that is the evidence for the first challenge. And the second one is need for precision when processing technical academic context. The interviewee said the innovation, one small detail can change a whole lot meaning. So I don't want to just guess from the context. So yeah, that is another challenge. And the last one is difficulty with context-specific academic language. Our interview said that sometimes the challenge is understanding the language that is particular to a specific context. How SLA theories explain these benefits and challenges within the first theme is exactly in this page. The first theory that could explain this is input processing theory by Van Patten, 2020. The benefit. This theory explained the benefit by repeated exposure to academic English improves learners' ability to process academic materials. This is why actually students reported being comfortable with academic reading after studying in English for years. And also this theory explains that prior exposure helped learn and understand complex academic discussion. So if we discuss about certain topic that is already familiar, which for student it works through reading the Canvas material, they will be easier to process. And then the challenge is recognizing vocabulary does not always lead to comprehension. It's basically say that students needed to reread technical explanation even though they understood the words, because complex academic input increased cognitive processing demands. They need very precision of definition when it put to subject-specific vocabulary. This is why small misunderstandings could change the meaning of a procedure they're going to comprehend or they wish to understand. And another theory is sociocultural theory. This theory also explains the benefit and challenges faced by the student within the first theme. The first one is for the benefit. This theory explains that participation in academic communities helps learner develop disciplinary understanding. This is why students understood course material better than people who are not from the same background. So basically saying that um, knowledge, or including knowledge of language, happens within the society, and when the students engage with that society, they will build their understanding better. And the second benefit is academic language development is supported by interaction with disciplinary resource. So this theory explains how the benefit is gained by the student, not only because they interact or not only because they socialize with the people around that specific culture, but how the students expose themselves or socialize or make themselves familiar, immerse themselves with the disciplinary resources. Prior engagement with Canvas materials help learners participate in complex discussion. For the challenges, academic language become difficult when meanings are specific to a discipline. That is very clear that when students need to understand context-specific language, they need to immerse themselves. This is why the student from social work found that context-specific language is challenging. And the second challenge explained by this theory is limited familiarity with discipline practices that can restrict understanding. This is the reason why technical language creates difficulties. And how they suggest of the teachers or institution could do better for them. The first, they need for discipline specific language support, and the second, they need for classroom recording to support understanding. The first one is the students say that they need like very explicit discipline specific language support, saying that I think language support should be connected more closely to the actual course. So for example, aviation students might need help with technical communication, while students in another degree might need completely different academic language. So teacher and institutions should connect that more closely and support students with discipline specific language support. And another interviewee said that they wish to be able to rewatch the classroom or tutorial class that they've done in the day they're learning. I mean, they want to revisit the class in through the recording. So they wish the teacher and institution can provide the recordings for them to revisit later on when they missed something that they need to revise or something they missed in the classroom. And for that, our response is within the next page. Here are basically the implications for teachers and institution. I've already mentioned them: to provide discipline-specific academic language support and record the classroom tutorial and allow students to revisit. This is actually drawn from the suggestions from the students, which also connected to the input theory, processing input theory, and also sociocultural theory. For the second theme, will be discussed by Charlene.
Okay. Our second theme is producing and negotiating meaning in real time. Across both interviews, authentic interaction emerge as both an opportunity and a source of pressure. Both participants are already relatively proficient English users, so the issue is not simply whether they know enough English. The challenging appears why they must when they must understand others, organize complex ideas, choose appropriate language, and respond immediately. At the same time, both learners actively managing these demands through preparation, clarification, and different forms of participation. And this comes to learner agency. Tao and Gao describe learners as active decision makers whose agency can be supported or constrained by the learning environment. So our key argument of our theme 2 is that real-time interaction is both a site of learning and a site of difficulty. So we are going to talk about benefits on the next page. Authentic interaction helps learners develop communicative resources. Participant A said, I learned a lot of natural expressions from classmates. He learned ways of joining conversation, agreeing, disagreeing, and asking for explanations. He also said now group work is more useful because I can compare how other people understand the topic. And participant B shows a similar pattern through clarification. When he doesn't understand someone, he asks, did you mean this or that? And explains once they clarify, then I understand and can engage with the discussion better. This reflects the input interaction output perspective discussed by Gass and Mackey. Through clarification and reformulation, learners can negotiate meaning and adjust in their own language. And Norton and Toohey add that language learning also depends on access to real social practices and conversations. So the benefit of English medium learning is not simply more exposure. It gives learners opportunities to participate, negotiate meaning, and develop communicative resources. However, on the next page, we're gonna know the same interaction also creates real-time processing pressure. Participant A said, I know exactly what I mean, but I need a few seconds to organize it properly. In aviation, he's also monitoring whether he's using the correct technical terminology. This shows that knowing an idea is not the same as being able to express it immediately and precisely. Participant B describes the problem from the comprehension side. Listening to lecture is not really the issue, it's the discussion in tutorial classes. Tutorials involve spontaneous speech, different accents, and no opportunity to reply what was said. At times, he says, sometimes I just pretend that I understand them. But he also actively manages the interaction. Slow down, let's make sure we understand each other. So this can connect to De Keyser's skill acquisition theory. De Keyser argues that knowledge becomes increasingly proceduralized through practice. In other words, knowing something doesn't automatically mean being able to accept it quickly during spontaneous communication. So the challenging is the real-time coordination of meaning, language, and time. So our next page, we're gonna talk about like the interview also show what learners think helps. So participant A said, knowing the discussion topic beforehand definitely helps. Participant B similarly explained that reading Canvas materials before tutorials gives him enough background knowledge to follow difficult discussions. So participant A also said, if the topic is complicated, I prefer discussing it with a few people first. This again connects to learner agency. Tao and Gao emphasize that agency should not simply be measured by visible participation. Learners need meaningful choices about how they participate. So teachers should not simply tell multilingual learners to speak more. Instead, interaction can be structured as prepare, rehearse, negotiate, and reformulate. For example, students can receive the topic and key terminology in advance, have short planning time, discuss in pairs or small groups, clarify misunderstandings, and then speak to the wider class. Clarification requests such as, did you mean or could you explain that again, should be treated as legitimate academic strategies. And at the institution level, universities should create learning environments where participation is structured, repeated, and discipline relevant, just like Wise mentioned, rather than assuming that high English proficiency automatically guarantees successful participation. So our recommendation is not to remove communicative challenging, but to scaffold learners' agency so they can work productively through it. This returns to our main argument. English medium learning is shaped not only by proficiency alone, but by how learners manage the opportunities and constraints of interaction. So this also leads into our third theme on multilingual and digital resources.
Okay, moving to our third theme, we focus on how to learners use multilingual, digital, and social resources to support their learning. So across the interviews, their strength is strategic resource choice, where the challenge is maintaining disciplinary precision. So the logic of this theme is choice, mediation, constraint, and evaluation. So overall, like learners can make difficult academic information more accessible, but they also need to judge whether the resources they use remain appropriate for the task. So the first part, we look at the benefits. So first, both learners. Okay, we need the next page. Ellie, thank you. Okay, first, both learners show strategy resource use. Participant A, who studies aviation, uses Chinese to confirm difficult concepts, asks classmates or instructors for clarification, and uses AI merely to explain something in a simple way. Participant B, who studies social work, uses Google or Gemini for difficult expressions, but asks friends when they are available. If he misses something in a record, class, he rewatches it or use transcript so he can review to see what he missed and better understand the discussion. All those two patterns emerge. Both learners adapt the resource choice to different learning needs rather than relying on one fixed strategy. They also reconstruct the difficult academic information into more accessible forms through linguistic and digital resources. Next page. Yeah, the first concept is learner agency. Tao and Gao describe agency as learners' capacity to make purposeful, purposeful choices and take control of their learning. This is visible because participants deliberately select resources that fit their current learning goal. Participant A chooses between Chinese, AI, and people fit their current learning goal. Yeah. Um, sorry. Participant A chooses between Chinese, AI, and people, while participant B shifts between friends, Gemini, replay, and transcript according to what he needs. The second concept is psychological mediation within social cultural theory. Lantoff, Poner, and Thorne explain that language and technical tools can reshape how cognitive activity is carried out. So in our data, like Chinese provide another linguistic route for confirming concepts, and AI reconstructed complex explanations into simpler forms, and the transcript to transform temporary spoken information into reviewable written information. So agency explains strategic choice, while psychological mediation explains how these resources increase accessibility. So for future teachers, this suggests that providing flexible access to modeling, digital, and interpersonal resources, explicit, explicitly teaching learners how to match resources to different learning purposes and providing reviewable forms of difficult academic input, such as recordings and transcripts. And the key strength is that learners agentively select resources that make difficult academic information more accessible for specific learning needs. And now we're going to see the challenges part. And however, the same resources also create challenges. Participant A still checks original technical material because he does not completely trust the translation and says AI tools can miss out one dimensions. Participant B avoids directly translating some like social work concepts into Indonesia because concepts don't translate perfectly, which can make understanding more difficult. These patterns are clear. Learners can make difficult content more accessible, but struggle to preserve disciplinary precision through simplification or translation. They also use multiple resources, but need to evaluate their suitability when precision matters. Next page, please. As the social cultural theory helps explain the first challenge. Mediational tools reshape how an activity is carried out rather than simply transmitting information unchanged. And in these interviews, AI and translation can increase accessibility, but the revised information may not preserve all technical or conceptual detail. For participant A, some technical dimensions may be omitted. For participant B, another linguistic representation may not preserve a specialized social work concept precisely. This creates a tension between accessibility and disciplinary precision. Learner agency explains how they respond to this strength. Agency is not only about selecting a resource, it also involves evaluating whether that resource still fits the learning goal. Participant A returns to this original aviation material when AI may not precise enough, while participant B limits directed translation when it may confuse specialized concepts. So for future teachers, learners should be taught to verify simplified or translated information against authority discipline resources when precision matters, and to evaluate resource suitability according to the task purpose and accuracy requirements. Multilingual and digital resources should remain flexible options with access to original sources or expert clarification when needed. Overall, mediation can improve accessibility without guaranteeing disciplinary precision. So learners need to evaluate and verify resources against the demands of the task. Yeah, now let's move to the conclusion part.
Okay, so to conclude, I'll briefly bring the three themes together. So for theme one, looked at how learners understand difficult academic content. We found that previous experience with academic English and subject knowledge can help. However, technical terms and the need to use precise language can still be difficult. And for theme two, look at communication in real time. Interaction helps learners learn natural expressions, ask questions, and check meaning. But speaking without much preparation can also be stressful because learners can have little time to think and correct themselves. Theme three, look at how learners use different resources to support their learning. These resources include their first language, classmates, teachers, tools, and transcripts. Learners choose different resources depending on what they need. However, this also need to check whether the information is correct or useful. Overall, learners are not just receiving English passively, they actively respond to different learning and communication challenges. So next page, please. And this brings us to the main point. English medium learning is shaped not by proficiency only, but by how learners exercise agency to engage with complex content, negotiate meaning, and mobilize multilingual and digital resources within the opportunities and constraints of their learning environment. In theme one, learners use learn previous knowledge and experience to understand difficult content. In theme two, students actively ask for clarification, negotiate, and the meaning and adjust their communication. For theme three, they choose when to use their first language, when to ask classmates or teachers, and when to use tools such as AI or transcripts. They also decide whether these resources are reliable. So learner agency means that learners can choose, clarify, verify, and revise. However, learners still face some constraints, including technical language, processing pressure during real-time communication, and concerns about accuracy of some resources. At the same time, they also have some important opportunities such as prior exposure, authentic interaction, and access to multilingual and digital resources. Our main argument is not that English proficiency is unimportant. It's still very important, but proficiency alone doesn't explain the whole learning experience. Learners' experiences are also shaped by how they use their own agency and respond to the opportunities and difficulties around them. Next page, please. So for teaching implications, based on these findings, we think teaching should support both English proficiency and learner agency. First, for content, teachers can provide disciplined language support and reviewable materials such as recordings, transcripts, and alternative explanations. These resources can help learners understand difficult content more effectively. Second, for interaction, teachers can create structured, repeated and low-risk opportunities for students to prepare. Third, for resources, teachers can offer multilingual, digital, and interpersonal resources while teaching learners to evaluate task fit and disciplinary accuracy. Overall, effective English medium teaching should not only focus on improving students' English, it also helps students make choices, take part in discussions, ask questions, check information, and change their learning strategies when needed. In short, supporting learner agency is an important part of helping students learn successfully in English medium settings. So thanks for watching. That's all our presentation. And this is our references.